Hi everyone, I just want to go through the syllabus quickly and talk about some expectations for class so that we're all on the same page. I know there's been some confusion about how to access different things, how to submit the homework, what all is even due. So I'm going to go through all of that and hopefully answer all of your questions. Okay, next slide. All right, so as you know, this semester we're having to split the lab classes into two different sessions. So normally the lab we have 24 students in, but because of coronavirus, the room capacity is smaller than that. So what we ended up doing is just having to split the class into two sessions. So for example, this last lab here, Thursday, section 12. So session A is only going to come to class from 4 to 4:50, and then session B is going to come to class from 5 to 5:50. There's going to be a 10-minute break in between for the instructors to clean and disinfect both tables as well as the models that we're going to be using in lab. So your lab is going to be shorter. You only have to come for 50 minutes. But hopefully we still get the same content across the semester. And it's really important this semester as well that there's absolutely no switching of lab sections or sessions. The session that you're assigned, you have to stay in, and that's the lab that you have to attend every week, regardless of anything. So there's no reason at all, no way at all for you to switch into a different lab class. So I sent out an email that has all of your names and it explains which session that you're in. So if you're confused on that, let me know. But it's just done alphabetically. So if you're close to the top of the alphabet, you should be in session A, and close to the end would be in session B. Okay, as well as being split into different sessions, we are also going to have a seating chart this semester. I know you've not seen the lab yet, so this might be kind of confusing. But on that sheet that I did send out, besides being split into sessions, you're also numbered. So those numbers next to your names correlate with the numbers that you're going to be sitting at in the lab. Okay, so there's 12 students in each lab. When you come into class next week, I'll have the tables numbered. So make sure you at least know your number. I'll have it there too if you forget. But it's important that you do only sit in your assigned seat. I'm sure after you see your seat once, you'll remember where it's at. But this is important because we are required this semester to take attendance for every class, every week, and have a seating chart. The university is requiring this for every single class. Because every week we have to submit that attendance and that seating chart to the university so that they know who's been attending classes. Just so if there's some sort of outbreak of coronavirus or whatever, they can do their contact tracing and figure out, who possibly was exposed to it. So it's really important that you are coming to your assigned class and also sitting in your assigned seat, just because it's easier to do that contact tracing that way. Okay, so I think I said this in an email earlier, but we are going to have like one door of the room that's an enter, one that's an exit. So before class, I know a lot of people like wait out in the hallway, come early. I'd recommend not doing that. We do have to disinfect and do stuff between classes now, so I'm not going to be able to open the door very early for you guys to come in and sit down. And I don't want everyone to be bunched up in the hallway, right? We have to maintain that 6-foot social distancing in the classroom and in the hallway. So if there's a lot of people out there, it's going to be kind of hard to do. It's a narrower hallway. So try to come just right on time. If you're a little late even, that's preferred rather than having everyone in the hallway at the same time. So 6-foot social distancing in the hallway as you enter the room as well. Don't everyone enter the room at once. And then when you're in the room, you also have to maintain that 6 feet between all the other students. So really this semester you're just going to be sitting in your seat the whole class and staying there, not really interacting with anyone, which I know is not very fun. That's the way it has to be. Obviously, if you need to leave to like go to the bathroom or whatever, that's fine. You can do that. Just when you're in the classroom, you're going to have to stay in your seat. Okay. Some contact information. So you've already gotten emails from me, so hopefully you know my email. But this semester I'm going to be doing my office hours on Zoom, just because I don't want any unnecessary contact if there doesn't have to be, right? So the Zoom code that I use is the same Zoom code for the one that we have for our Zoom meeting. It's going to be the same for all my office hours every week. So if you have this code saved somewhere, whatever, that would be best. I'll send out an email too, with reminders of my office hours. But my office hours right now, I'll be on Zoom during these times: Tuesday 3 to 4, and then Wednesday and Thursday 9 to 10. If those times don't work for you and you want to meet, send me an email and let me know, and we can schedule a different time. Okay. My Zoom room is set up that so that there is a waiting room when you come in. So instead of just being automatically admitted into the meeting, everyone first enters that waiting room. So I have that set up for office hours specifically, because if there's someone in my office hours in that Zoom having a personal question or a question about their grades, information that they don't want other students hearing, I don't want just random people to be able to come in and pop in, and just hear what we're saying. So the office hours are going to be kind of a first come first serve basis. So whoever's there first, I'll talk with them, and you may have to wait in the waiting room while I finish up with a student if there's multiple students at the same time. If you know you are planning on attending virtual office hours, if you send me an email ahead of time, just let me know. I'll make sure that I give you like a little appointment or whatever, so you won't have to wait in the waiting room. Okay. Otherwise, if there's someone there already, you might have to wait. Other thing too with this, if there's like a group of students that have similar questions or just general questions about lab and the content of lab, whatever, obviously you can have like everyone in at the same time if we want. This is just if there's like more personal questions. Okay. So some requirements for lab: obviously the online lab manual, that hopefully everyone has been able to access by now. So we're not using EduCat at all this semester. We are only using this Hayden McNeil website. So Giuseppe has sent out the syllabus. I've sent out the syllabus. This link is in the syllabus. So you should be able to access that. I would recommend just bookmarking it on your computer so it's easy to find. But you do need access to that lab manual. That is where you're going to actually access the lab manual itself. So the information, it's an online like book, if you will, just in the form of PDFs each week. But also besides the lab manual itself, we have on that website the homework submission as well as quizzes that you're going to have to do. So that's kind of like the EduCat, if you will, for lab. So your grades and everything will be kept up to date on that Hayden McNeil site, not EduCat. Besides that, there is a physical text that is required for lecture. That would be a good resource for lab as well. So if you want to have that handy, it might not be a bad idea. That text does go into a lot more detail than we cover in lab. So as far as like information for what you have to know for quizzes and exams in lab, only the stuff I cover in the lectures in lab and the stuff that's in the lab manual. So although this text is a great, reference, it does go into more detail. So some of the stuff might not be relevant to your guys' lab. Besides that, you need obviously a computer with internet access to access the lab manual as well as the quizzes and everything. The lab manual itself, you have to be able to access that when you're in class each week. So if you want to have your computer in class and have that pulled up on your computer, you can do that. If you prefer to have a physical copy and print it each week, you can. I'm not requiring anyone to print anything if you don't want to. It's just a personal preference. I like to have papers in front of me, and when I'm doing stuff, be able to fill out the actual papers. But if you'd rather just have it on your computer, that's fine. Because of coronavirus, obviously we have to social distance, which means there's no sharing of lab manuals or anything this semester. So you do have to have your own lab manual, each week in class. If it's a pinch and you forget your computer or whatever, you can pull it up on your phone even, I guess, if you really want to. But each week you need to have some way to access that, so have that bookmarked. Okay, so besides that, you do need to do some safety training in order to participate in the lab. So all biology labs require the students to take safety training before, being able to participate. So there's safety training on EduCat that you have to complete by week 2, so next week when I see you. So on EduCat, you should all be enrolled in this BI207. It's a safety training. Um, and in that EduCat, you'll see that there's 4 different topics. There is a general lab safety, biohazard safety, chemical safety, and there's also a field safety. So you have to complete the safety training for only general lab safety, biohazard, and chemical. So this is in your syllabus if you forget. You don't have to do the field safety one. That's for classes that go outside and go on like little trips and hikes and stuff, which we're not doing in anatomy lab. Okay, so for each of those topics, there is a little PowerPoint that you have to look through. It has some information on the topic, obviously. There is an acknowledgement quiz, which is a 1-question quiz that just asks if you looked at the PowerPoint. Obviously, you want to say yes, just making sure that you're actually looking at it. And then there's an actual quiz that has questions about the material in the PowerPoint. The actual quiz is maybe 5 questions or so. They're not too difficult. You can have the quiz open and the PowerPoint open at the same time. So as you're taking the quiz, use the PowerPoint as a reference. But you do have to get 100%, so every single question right on all 3 of those quizzes by next week. If you get a question wrong, you can retake the quiz, so you can redo it as many times as you need, but you have to get 100% on all 3, general lab, biohazard, and chemical safety by next week. Okay, so if you don't have that next week, you can't participate in the lab. So it says this is a little severe. You're going to be dropped from the course. You're not going to be dropped. I'm going to have you leave lab and complete this training. But you won't get participation points for lab next week. So it's really important that you do it ahead of time so you can participate in lab. Okay. If anyone has questions on how to access this on EduCat, let me know. It's pretty straightforward. It should just be like another course in your EduCat page. Okay. General safety, this I'll talk about in class next week, where the different safety stuff in the room is. But I just wanted to say before we get in there that there's absolutely no food or drink in the room. With coronavirus, we have to wear masks on campus anyway at all times, so you're not really going to be able to eat or drink. But no food or drink, so please don't bring any food or drink to the classroom. And then also you are required to wear closed-toed shoes, so it's gonna be winter soon, so that won't be a problem. But for these last nice weeks, make sure you are wearing closed-toed shoes to lab. All right, some corona safety stuff. This I'm sure Giuseppe has talked about as well, or Dr. Jeslo if you're in her lecture, because you guys are online, so never mind. Corona safety stuff. Masks are required at all times on campus. So in the hallways, in class, even when you're sitting down in class, you have to keep your mask on. So it's not like a restaurant where you can sit down and take it off. You're required to keep it on at all times. No bandanas or those buffs that are like over your neck. Those don't count. You have to have a physical mask on at all times. If somehow you forget a mask or something, we do have extra masks in the lab to give you, but please make sure, you need it to come to class, so you should have it when you're in class, right? If you don't wear a mask or choose not to, I will ask you to put on a mask. If you refuse, then you will be kicked out of the lab and you will receive a 0 for that week. So please just wear a mask. If you're in any in-person classes, you are required to have a mask on. 6-foot social distancing at all times. So again, if you're like sitting around in the hallway, please try to maintain this as well. In the classroom, our seats will be spread out, so you won't have to really think about it. But that includes me social distancing from you guys as well. So I'm required to social distance at all times, which I know in a lab might be pretty tricky. So I do have a face shield I can wear and get close to you if you guys have questions or want me to help identify something on a model. But for the most part, I am going to maintain my distance in lab. I highly recommend that all the time you wash your hands or sanitize them with hand sanitizer, but especially when you're coming into lab or like coming to lab, please wash your hands before you come or when you get there. We will have soap or hand sanitizer in the room just because we are handling models in the class. So if we could avoid bringing in germs to the room, that would be ideal. We are going to sanitize them between classes, but it's good just to be extra safe. Also, before you leave the room, I'd recommend you wash your hands and or sanitize them as well, because again, you're touching the models. Other students are touching those models. Even though they are being cleaned, it's obviously not a bad idea just to stay safe. Okay, so most of our models are plastic, and again, will be disinfected between labs as well as the desks and chairs and everything in the classroom. But we do have bones that we use when we talk about the skeletal system that are real bones. So they're bones from human donors, and those can't be disinfected, 100 times. The disinfectants will damage the bones themselves. So those we cannot disinfect. So for those, during those weeks that we're using them, you will be wearing gloves. You'll be required to wear gloves in the classroom. There will always be gloves available if you want to wear gloves, handling other models, but that week we will require everyone to have gloves on. Obviously, though, if you're touching the models, you get those germs on your gloves. That's the same thing as if they're on your hands, right? So don't be touching your face or whatever when you have those gloves on. Okay. I think that's it for corona safety stuff. So now the layout of the lab, and this is what I think is confusing a lot of people as well as the homework, so I'll make sure to explain it hopefully in depth enough that it makes sense. So since we don't have the full lab time, we don't have enough time to do what we normally do in class. So normally at the beginning of the class, we have a short quiz over the previous week's material. And then I would give a lecture over what we're talking about that week, and then you would have time to do the lab. So whether that's, little activities or just looking at the models, whatever, that's basically our normal setup. So since we can't do all of that, there's going to be more stuff that you guys have to do at home, right? So at home, before you come to lab, we're asking you to read through the lab manual. Again, it's on that Hayden McNeil site. So read through it. You don't have to complete the activities or fill anything out or answer any questions. Do none of that before class. Just simply look through it to get a general idea of what we're doing that week. The lectures for the week will also be posted on the Hayden McNeil site, and you're required to watch those before you come to class. Okay, so since we don't have time in class to do the lectures, we want to make sure that you're actually watching the lectures. So to test that you are, there's a short pre-lab quiz before each lab. So the pre-lab quiz is just 4 questions. They're each a half a point, so 2 points total. You have 5 minutes to complete it, and it's just simple questions about the lecture and the lab that we're doing that week, just to make sure you guys are prepared when you come to class. Okay, during class, the Hayden McNeil site, there's the lab manual PDFs posted. So during class, you'll have the time to go through those PDFs, answer the questions, do all the little activities, look at the models. If we're learning like about muscles or bones, you'll have time to label everything, make sure you really know everything, ask questions, etc. Okay, so that's what all we're doing in class. And then after class, there's lab homework, and I'll show you in a second what that is. But lab homework that you have to do, and then you have to submit it. and then there's a post-lab quiz about the material that we covered that week. And that will be on the Hayden McNeil site as well. Okay. So due dates for these labs are from Tuesday through Thursday, right? That's what days we have this lab. So we wanted to make the due dates consistent for everyone. So for everyone, everything is going to open Friday at 8 a.m. and then close the following Monday at 5 p.m. So that means after lab, even if you have lab Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whenever, Friday at 8 a.m., that post-lab quiz will open, as well as that homework drop box for that week. Okay, so at that time you can take the quiz over the material, you can submit your homework. Obviously, if you want to get started on your homework ahead of time, you can, but you just can't submit it until Friday at 8 a.m. And then you have all weekend and then Monday until 5 p.m. To complete that for the week, right? So this first week, Friday at 8 a.m., you're going to have the homework Dropbox for Lab 1 open, as well as the post-lab quiz for Lab 1 open. Okay? Also, what's opening during this time is the pre-lab quiz for the next week. Okay? So Friday at 8 a.m., pre-lab quiz 2 for next week is also going to open. So between 8 a.m. on Friday and 5 p.m. on Monday, you have to do, for this week, submit homework 1. You have to do post-lab quiz 1 over the material we learned this week. And then you have to do the pre-lab quiz 2 for next week, right? So that means you need to watch the lecture for next week, as well as look through the lab handout. Okay? And I will show you, let me just pull it up, what all that looks like. So on the Hayden McNeil site, you guys hopefully have all accessed that. At the very top is your syllabus with all of this information. But under Lab 1, you can see that we have week 1 is Introduction to Anatomy and Physiology. The lecture is posted here. There's another supplementary video showing the models. So if you do go online, these videos are like the only way you'll be able to actually see the model. I taught this course over the summer and it was fully online, so this is like what they did every week was just watch videos of me showing things. But those are posted just so you have a little extra help if you need it or whatever. If we're in person, you don't necessarily need to watch those videos, you just have to watch the lectures. But then we have the pre-lab quiz here, homework Dropbox, and the post-lab quiz. Okay, so it gets a little more confusing because under week 1, there's actually 2 labs technically. So both of these labs are due for week 1. So the lecture that I recorded covers all the information in both of these. The pre-lab quiz covers both of these. Homework is the homework from both of these. And the post-lab quiz, right, is going to cover both of these as well. Okay. This lab manual is new this semester, and we wanted to simplify it. And Giuseppe was working with the publishers, and unfortunately, they can't combine these, apparently. I don't know why you can't combine PDFs to make just one lab, but they couldn't, so that we have 2 labs, which I know is confusing. But if you look at the lab itself, this is the first lab here. Objectives in the beginning. All of this stuff is what you're going to be doing like in class. So reading through it, there's little activities telling you to look at the models. There are some fill in the blank questions, right? These guys here. So this is like your activity, what the lab is. For week 1, obviously we're not going to be in person. So you can't look at the models and do that stuff, but you can go through, read through this, fill in these blanks, right? Learn the information. That's like the lab, okay? Anatomy and physiology lab's not like a chemistry lab or something where you have like a lab to do, where you're doing like an experiment or something. It's literally just like learning the material and kind of applying it, looking at models to see different, anatomical features, etc. So that's the lab. The homework is the lab review. So at the end of lab 1, starting on page 13, it says laboratory review. So that's the homework that you're going to submit. So you can see we have, questions just over the material that we learned that week. So everything from that lab review on is the homework. At the end, there might be some extra activities, coloring activities. In the future, there might be some different activities. These are not going to be part of the homework, not collected, just their supplementary extra practice if you guys want them. Okay, but the lab review I am collecting. And that reminds me too, the lab itself. So these things that you're filling in up here, that you're like doing in class. I'm not gonna ever collect those. You're gonna do them. You get participation points for doing it and being in class. But you get to keep those because you're gonna need them to study. But the lab review at the end, I will be collecting. And since this is a PDF, I know it's difficult to answer these questions, right? You can't just like type in here. So you can submit the lab or do the lab review, the homework, in a few different ways. So if you have a PDF editor or something on your computer, or if you have like an iPad or something, you can type in the answers or add like little comments with the PDF editor and save it, and then you can submit it that way. If you want to print this out and handwrite the stuff in, you can do that and then submit the pictures, take pictures of just your completed, worksheets, put those into a Word document or something and submit them, or make them into a PDF and submit them. If you want to just go through, have this open, have another Word document open, and just type out like number 1A is sagittal, 1B, type the answers in a Word document. You can do that and submit it. If you want to handwrite them on notebook paper, then take pictures of that and submit it. You can do that. Whatever is easiest for you. There's no really good way to do that. This, to be honest, it's kind of going to be a pain regardless of how you do it. So whatever works best for you is fine with me. The homework, though, it does have to be submitted as either a Word document or a PDF. So if you do take pictures, you have to put them into a Word document or make them into a PDF. And if you take pictures on your phone, there's apps you can download that are free. That's like a picture to PDF converter, where you could just literally click your pictures and it makes it into a PDF. Okay, so there's ways to do it. If you're not sure the best way or confused or have questions, let me know. But again, whatever works best for you, I don't really care either way as long as you answer these questions. And if you do type it out, just make sure you're at least like numbering them, so it's easy to follow and I can understand like what questions you're answering. Okay, so that's the homework. So for week 1, homework 1 Dropbox covers the homework for both lab 1 and lab 2. So everything under week 1 is what you need to do for homework 1. Okay, so some weeks you can't see week 2 yet, but for next week there's only one lab there, right? So you'll only have one lab review to do. It just is going to depend on the week. Okay, if you have questions on that, let me know. Back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so for the homework, I already talked about most of this here. But one other thing is please include your name in the file name of the homework. So I just gave some examples. The name, and then also if you say like homework, week 1 or lab 1, whatever you want to call it. Just so when I open it, I know whose it is. Because there's a lot of students in this class, so it'd be nice to have your name in the file name. Okay, quizzes, I think I talked about most of this as well. Pre-lab quiz is 2 points. You have 5 minutes. There are 4 half-point questions. And then the post-lab quiz is just 10 one-point questions. It's 10 points total. You're going to have 15 minutes to do the post-lab quiz. So you should have plenty of time. Okay. Makeup work and late policy. So there's no makeup work unless you have an excused absence, which includes medical hospitalization with a doctor's note, if you have a funeral, or if you have a sporting event that's university sponsored. Otherwise, there's really no makeups given for unexcused absences. So you have from Friday to Monday to complete all of those things on your own. Some point during that time, having Wi-Fi access is a requirement for this class. Um, so you have plenty of time over the weekend to get that completed. So saying you didn't have Wi-Fi, or if it was Monday and your Wi-Fi went out, that's not a legitimate excuse because you had many other days to complete that assignment, right? So don't be waiting till the very last minute, because there will be Wi-Fi issues, I'm sure. There's already been some. So just try to plan ahead, get stuff done on ahead of schedule so that you're not waiting to the last minute and there happens to be, an issue. Okay. Yeah. If you have questions on this, let me know. The other thing I want to say though too is if you do have coronavirus or you've been exposed to someone or have some symptoms, do not come to class. If that's the case and you don't go to the doctor or don't have a doctor's note, that's fine. Just let me know. I don't want you coming to class sick because you don't have a doctor's note. If you do have symptoms, do not come to class and we can figure out makeups for that. Obviously, I'm not gonna make you come to class if you have coronavirus and no doctor's note. Okay. Grading. There's 11 lab quizzes. They're each 10 points. Participation includes the pre-lab quiz, homework, and just being in class. You get 5 points every week for just being there and doing that lab. So again, I'm not going to collect that lab, but I will make sure that everyone in class is, actually working on things. So you get participation points. And then there are 2 practicals, a midterm and a final, that are each 50 points. Okay. You need a 60% in lab to pass. If you fail lab, you fail the entire class. So you'd have to retake both lecture and lab again if you do fail. So even if you get an A+ in lecture, it's one class, so you have to take the whole thing over again. Okay, and then the last thing, I'm going to go back to the website, the syllabus here actually. So this is the syllabus. You all should have access to this. So at the very end, Giuseppe made a schedule that I think lays everything out really nicely. So for week 1, before lab, it tells you what you need to do and the due date and time. And then after lab, it tells you what you need to do, homework, post-lab quiz, and when that's due. Okay, so every week, I would recommend printing this off and having it and, crossing stuff off as you go. But every week, Monday at 5 p.m., you're going to have the post-lab quiz due. So, okay, so for week 1, pre-lab quiz was already due, but the post-lab quiz opens Friday at 8 a.m., and you'll have till Monday at 5 p.m. to do that post-lab quiz and to do submit homework 1 into the Dropbox. Okay. You also have pre-lab quiz 2 due Monday at 5 p.m. Okay, so you can see before lab and after lab everything you have to do. So I think the schedule lays it out pretty nice, and just follow along here. And then on here you also see the lab practical. So week 7 is the midterm, or lab practical 1. So that covers everything before it, obviously. So it's going to be cumulative from week 1 to week 6. So up into the skeletal system, all that information will be on the midterm. And then the final is the last week, week 14. And you're only going to be tested on the material on the final from lab 8 through 13. So week 8 through 13. Okay, so just from muscle physiology on. Okay, so that's all I had. If there's any questions, please let me know. Send me an email. We can have Zoom meetings. Let me know if there's issues, but hopefully this cleared up most of your guys' questions. Okay.